See, madness is never that far away. It's as close as saying yes to the wrong impulse. The people who stay sane are the people who can make those quick decisions. Should I stick my fingers into the fan? Or leave the room right now? Should I run the blade of this razor across my tongue? Or just finish shaving and move away from the sink? Come on, you're right there. You just go, but you don't, because luckily, most of us have that little voice inside our head that says, turning the car into oncoming traffic is counterproductive.
Observational comedy is nothing new. Comedy often comes from people noticing things around them and twisting them to have a premise, a lead-up, and a punchline. But what about observation about thinking? Here, Jim Carrey is personifying his thoughts to make it clear to the audience what he's talking about. His impulses and his second thoughts, what he personifies as the inner voice. Today, I want to talk about those second thoughts, the voice in your head. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To begin, I'd like you to imagine a thought. One solitary thought. This could be anything, a stirring craving to have a cigarette, or another cookie, or to jump into the lion's pit. These thoughts, left unnoticed, can be harmful. Now let's add one of those second thoughts. See, this is us thinking about our first thought. This is us not turning the car into oncoming traffic. This is awareness. Awareness is a concept that pops up a lot. In meditative practices, they say that half of wisdom is awareness. And we've all heard the saying, the first step in solving any problem is recognizing that there is one. And the concept even stretches to crunk.
Oh, come off it.
You come off it.
You,
infinity.
This awareness is called metacognition. Metacognition is nothing new. It's been studied and explored ever since we had thoughts to study and explore. It can provide a deep insight into yourself and give you a self-correcting, customized guide toward doing anything you want to do. It's arguably one of the most useful techniques out there for learning. So why have so few people heard about it? There's plenty of information out there about metacognition, wonderful, helpful websites dedicated toward teaching teachers how to better teach. The issue I have is with the presentation of this information. As an example, here's a passage from improvewithmetacognition.com. Metacognition refers to an intentional focusing of attention on the development of a process so that one becomes aware of one's current state of accomplishment, along with the situational influences and strategy choices that are currently or have previously influenced accomplishment of that process. Completely accurate, very informative, also dry as f***. In the literature, they give you strategies, tasks you can do, asking better questions, the concept of deliberate practice, and teaching being the best way to learn. But what I have yet to see is how metacognition looks in everyday life. To begin, I'd like to introduce you to your brain. Specifically, your frontal lobe. Specifically, one aspect of your frontal lobe, your executive functioning. Your executive functioning is that voice inside your head that says, It says stuff like, let's eat vegetables instead of Skittles, or there are fences around the lion pit for a good reason, or now we're in the lion pit, how do we get out of here without touching the lions? Your executive functioning wants to take care of you. It's trying all the time to help you succeed, but most of the time we don't listen to it. So as an experiment, I'd like you to grab something to write with and on, and write at the top in big capital letters. Now I'd like you to think of someone you really respect. Someone you'd listen to no matter what. Not because they're in charge or they're your parents or whatever, but because you genuinely trust them and you like them. Write their name down. Take your time to think about it. You can pause the video if you'd like. What I'd like to propose is that we personify our executive functioning. Much like Jim Carrey did with his thoughts to present them to an audience, we can give our executive functioning a face, a voice, a personality to help better present it to ourselves. I'd like you to imagine your executive functioning is the person you wrote down. Next time they say, let's do our homework instead of binge watching the last season of Lost for the 4th time, picture it as your mentor saying it. Question: how many of you wrote yourselves? I'd be willing to bet very few. And this is precisely the reason why we don't listen to our executive functioning as is. We don't respect ourselves enough to listen when we have good things to say. Why is that? Authority is a tricky thing. Oftentimes, other people have authority over us. Sometimes we have authority over other people, but we rarely get authority over ourselves. In school, we're taught many different things, but one of them is not independence. Every step of the education process is run by a teacher. We learn very early on that authority is something purely external, that we are guided by adults and teachers, not by our inner voice. This is a tragedy. We are all unique flowers and we all learn a little bit differently, and public school just isn't equipped to provide the proper education to every single student. That would require one teacher per student. There just isn't enough manpower for that. Or is there? We all have this executive functioning, and it's already doing everything it can to help us, shouting at the top of its lungs, but we refuse to listen to it. If we just perked up our ears and gave ourselves a little bit of authority to listen to our little mentor, I think there's a lot of potential for change. Welcome to the Polymath. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, obviously you can do that. You can support me on Patreon if you'd like to do that as well. All the links to all the videos I use are going to be in the description. I had a great time making this video. I've got a bunch of plans for the future because, you know, there's a lot more voices in your head than just your executive functioning. There's also voices that tell you to jump into the lion's pit. And to distinguish between them, there's a lot of trial and error, mostly error, and that's what the next video is going to be about. So tune in next week where we'll look at this video as a total failure and how that's a good thing. Okay, bye.
I have this tiny, a tiny chef who tells me what to do.